Hello, my friend. Welcome to today's special episode of YAM. We've entitled it End Times Update, where our goal in this program is to look at prophecy, look at current events as they unfold, and how we see that prophecy is being unfolded right before our eyes. And in today's program, this is a continuation of a program we did at our local church where we looked at Trump's second term and also how many Seventh Adventists are preparing to receive the mark of the beast. So if you're curious as to what these topics are and exactly what we'll be discussing, please stick with us. We prayed prior to recording this video, so we want to keep these on the shorter side. So we're going to go straight into the content, but buckle your seatbelts because you're about to go on a fantastic ride as we look at Bible prophecy being unfolded right before our very eyes. So just as a heads up, this is not political in any way. We want to put that disclaimer out there. We're not siding for any political party. We're not going to be bashing any political party as well. So we're not pro-Trump or anti-Trump. We're not pro-Democrat or anti-Democrat. We're not pro-Republican or anti-Republican. We are political neutral. Our concern, our passion is really the word of God, God's people, and how we see these political events impacting God's children, especially through the lens of Bible prophecy, right? So I want to make this super, super clear because, right away when you put certain names or issues in a title in a video and you discuss certain topics, people come out of the woodwork and then you get attacked and bashed and, get accused of all sorts of things. Again, just to be clear, we are not political. Another disclaimer is we are 100% supportive and members, active members and officers of our local Seventh-day Adventist Church. We love the Seventh-day Adventist Church as an organization, so we are not critical in any way of the church organization. Um, all we're trying to do is present the truth as we see it in love. Amen. So Musa, I'm putting out these disclaimers, just wondering if there's any that you would like to discuss as well, because a lot of times when you do these videos, people have these thoughts already in their mind and they kind of label what you're doing. But we just want to be super abundantly clear about what we're doing with this video. Any disclaimers you'd like to add?
Yes, one disclaimer that I want to add is that, what we're saying is through the lens of Bible prophecy, because we as God's people, we have to view these things in light of Bible prophecy. We're not like what my brother said, when we're not trying to be political, we're not trying to take sides with any political party. That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
We're trying to present Bible prophecy, and we're showing what we're going to be presenting, you know, through our presentations is through the lens of Bible prophecy. We're going to show that what we're seeing, what we're seeing happening right now, especially in light of this election and what's coming, is going to fulfill Bible prophecy.
amen.
And so,
Yep,
so for those who are watching this video, we're not trying to be political, we're not trying to take sides, but we're just trying to present Bible prophecy because it's important for us to know these things and to see how it's fulfilling prophecy, because
amen.
our prophecy is going to be fulfilled either way, one
It
way or
is.
the other, and
Exactly.
we have to
This,
be we have to be aware of these things and and learn what we need to be doing as God's people, and to prepare for what is about to come upon this world. So
amen.
um
Amen.
and
And
so,
as you
and
just
so
said that,
yeah.
that's such a good point. And disclaimer number three, and we're going to dive in, but we just want to make sure that we are responsible with how we treat God's word and how we present this information. Disclaimer number three is that we are not time setting, right?
Mhm.
No man knows the
Right.
day nor the hour. We do not know when these things will happen. What we can see and know, and in fact, the spirit of prophecy tells us, is that we are required, and the Bible, we are required to know when it is near. Right, so let's make that clear. We don't know the day nor the hour. We don't know when the mark of the beast or the Sunday law will be passed, but we know and we
Mhm.
can see based on the signs that it is near. And this is what this presentation is going to do. It's going to show you clearly that this is on the horizon. This is where we are trending. This is where we are going. This is the direction of travel. But we are not going to put any dates to it. Very important,
Right.
because we want to be very, very responsible with how we treat God's word. And so hopefully you receive this disclaimer in love. This is not political. This is not anti-SDA. This is pro-SDA. We are active members, fully supportive of the church. And this is not time setting. Okay, so let's dive in. Musa, over to you, and yeah, let's go get into it.
So we're gonna get started. We're gonna be talking about Project 2025 and Christian nationalism. Now, I'm sure everyone who is watching, who's tuning in, to this video, has heard of Project 2025 and Christian nationalism. Now, we're gonna be learning. We're gonna be covering this, but first, we're gonna kind of lay a foundation, um, so that way we can, understand what we're gonna be talking about through. That's a bad process. Now, one thing I want to point out here is that ignoring Bible prophecy is not going to stop it from happening or from coming to pass. Now, it's one thing that we have to understand. Bible prophecy is going to come to pass, as we discussed earlier. Um, and ignoring it, ignore Bible prophecy, it's not going to stop it from coming to pass. It's going to come to pass one way or the other. And ignoring prophecy gives the enemy to deceive you. Prophecy is not to scare, prophecy is to prepare. All right. Jesus said in his word that I tell you these things so that when they come to pass, you might believe. So, we have Bible prophecy so that, God has given us Bible prophecy so that way we can understand what's about to come to pass. So that when we see these things unfolding before our eyes, in light of where we are right now, we can see, okay, God told us that that's going to happen. I believe it. So that's a Bible prophecy. And what we're going to be presenting is through the lens of prophecy, because we have to understand as God's people that Bible prophecy is coming to pass right before our eyes. And we need to get ready, get ready, get ready, because the end of all things is at hand. Now, in Revelation 13, and we're not going to read the entirety of Revelation 13. We're just going to cover a few points. But Revelation 13, we read about these two beasts. The first beast, which is the papacy, the second beast power, which is the lamb-like beast, the two-horned lamb-like beast, which is the United States of America. And in verse 12 of Revelation 13, it says, it exercises all the authority or all the power of the first beast. And it points out here that the United States will become a persecuting power that will force people to go against their conscience, as did Papal Rome, which is portrayed in the first half of Revelation chapter 13. Now, in the United States, we believe in religious liberty. We believe in freedom of conscience, right? And someone may say, "Well, like people will never think that the United States will one day become a persecuting power," but one day, um, it will exercise the power of the first beast in persecuting those go against um who go against religious laws, right? That will be enforced. The United States will become a persecuting power that will force people to go against their conscience, as did Papal Rome, which is portrayed in the first half of Revelation chapter 13. And then it goes on to say it causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. And it also goes on to say the United States will lead the nations of the world enforcing allegiance to the papal antichrist. The issue is always worship. Who will you worship today? I mean, who will you worship and obey? Will it be Christ, your creator and redeemer, or Antichrist? That's going to be the issue at the end of time. It's always going to be about worship. Even when we read in Daniel 3, the issue was about worship. And yet, at the end of time, we're going to see this test is going to come up again for us as God's people. And the question is, who are we going to give our worship to? Will it be Christ, your creator, redeemer, or Antichrist? That, that it's going to be two choices. There's no middle ground. There's no neutral ground. Choice. Who are we going to give our worship to? Every soul on earth will finally worship one or the other. Satan's approach will appear to be deeply spiritual, and incredible miracles will be seen. Now, and it's so true because, what we're going to be saying here is that Satan's strategy to enforce worship it's going to be very spiritual. It's going to appear spiritual, but and we're going to see miracles being performed and all these things with false miracles, and dive we're going to talk more about that later on in this video. And it's going to deceive billions. It's going to deceive billions. And then those who refuse to join this movement will be considered divisive, stubborn, radical, and unpatriotic. Okay, so Jesus labeled Christ in America of the end times a false prophet, and that's in Revelation 19, verse 20, and chapter 20, verse 10, because it will appear spiritual and trustworthy, but instead will be satanic in its conduct. All this may seem impossible, but Jesus' words are always reliable and true. He foretold the rise and fall of the four world empires and the Antichrist, and that's in Daniel chapters 2 and 7. At a time when such predictions seemed outlandish and incredible, but all came to pass precisely as predicted. His warning to us today regarding prophecy is, I have told you before it comes, that when it does come to pass, you may believe. So, the Lord is showing us all these things so that He's telling us these things so when we see these things come to pass, we may believe. And then in verse 14 of Revelation 13, it says, telling those who dwell on the earth, make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. The United States will make an image to the beast by legislating religious practice. It will pass laws requiring worship and force people to either obey them or face death. That's going to become a reality. It's either we obey, it's either we bow down and worship the beast, or we're going to face the death penalty. This action is a copy or image of the church-state form of government the papacy ruled with at the height of her power during the Middle Ages, when millions were slain for their faith. The United States will combine civil government and apostate Protestantism in a marriage that will support the papacy. It will then influence the nations of the world to follow her example. Thus, the papacy will gain worldwide support. And then verse 15, and causes as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Revelation 13:15. The United States, as head of this international movement, will next influence the nations of the world to impose a death sentence upon all who refuse to worship the beast or its image. Another name for this worldwide coalition is Babylon the Great. Oh, right. This worldwide alliance will, in the name of Christ, substitute the policeman's power for the Holy Spirit's mental persuasion, and it will force worship. And we're going to see this image of the beast being formed when the National Sunday Law is going to be enforced, will be enforced. And when a National Sunday Law is made, we will know the final storm is about to break. And when we see this become a reality, it's not going to be called the National Sunday Law. That's not what it's going to be called. We may think it's going to be called that, but because they may call it an Earth Sabbath or anything of that sort.
Or
But we
a
know
family
that
day, yeah,
or family,
and
yeah,
that's a great point. It's not going to be called the Mark of the Beast or the National Sunday Law. It's going to be
right,
called a Earthly Week Sabbath or Family Day or Day for the Environment, climate change. It's going to be in disguise. That's what we're
for
told,
being
right?
this guys,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So this is going to become a reality, and we're going to see later on that this crisis that we're talking about right now is around the corner. And we're not saying, again, we're not time setting. I'm not saying that this crisis is going to come, it's going to happen next year or whenever,
Yeah.
right? We're not saying that it's going to happen that soon because, again, like we said earlier, no man knows the day or the hour, but only God knows. So he's the one in charge of when this practice is going to happen. Our duty is to get ready and to prepare. Now, the reason why we say that Sunday's mark is because we see here in the Catholic record, September 1, 1923, they say Sunday is our mark of authority. Talk about the Roman Catholic Church. They say that Sunday is our mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. So they tell you right there, they say that Sunday is our mark of authority, right? They admit it. And when you read in their catechism, they tell you straightforward that we change the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day of the week. So people may ask, okay, so you explained what the image of the beast is and all these things, but how will we know when it's going to be enforced? When it will be enforced? It will be enforced when, by the decree enforcing the institution of the papacy in violation of the law of God, our nation will disconnect herself fully from righteousness. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, when under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, and the end is near. So once we see this, when we see this taking place, when we see Protestantism united with Roman Catholicism, and we see this church and state union come together, that's when we will see the image of the beast being formed. So, and then Spirit Prophecy goes on saying in Great Controversy, 1888 edition, 445, paragraph 1. She says, when the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and to sustain their institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon the dissenters will inevitably result. So she says here that when the leading churches, when they unite together, very soon, they're going to influence the state, and once church and state comes together, is going to result in the enforcement of religious laws and even persecution at the end of time.
And we're seeing this already happening. We saw this
Seeing
start
this
to
already
happen,
happening.
yep, in Trump's last term, and then now he's also pledged to have this religious or faith-based council established. And I know we'll come to it in subsequent videos, but we see that the leading churches of America have officially endorsed a political candidate who's now won the election, right? At the time of this video, he hasn't taken office, but he has the full support of Protestant America. And if there was to be one person or one candidate or one party to then execute the goals and the wishes of Protestant America, it is Donald Trump and the Republican Party in its current form. So we're already seeing this taking shape right now.
Yeah, definitely. We see it taking shape. And so again, when we see this happening, we're gonna see very soon in the far future, we're gonna see religion influencing the government to start implementing laws
Yep.
that will go against the conscience of people. Here's one example right here, and we're going to show a couple more videos just to kind of illustrate this point, where again there's going to be agitations for Sunday. Now let's watch this video right here.
And you would see this theme play out. Look at this old ad right here. Vote no on Sunday movies. Boy, don't you wish that was the extent of our propositions on the election ballot, whether to go to movies or not? Here's a list of this is a current map where you can buy alcohol on Sundays and where you can't. Interestingly, if you go out to New England states, you can't buy alcohol in a grocery store on a Sunday, I don't believe. I think you have to go to a liquor store. So it's a little harder to get still. You may remember blue laws, right? Movie houses would be closed. Certain businesses would be closed. And so there's sort of in the, I guess, heyday, although I'm not sure there ever was one, there was a time when American culture sort of reflected. In fact, some of these modern theologians say the day the relationship between the church and the state was forever abolished was the first time they had a movie on a Sunday afternoon at some theater in North Carolina, right? And then you knew the culture had sort of finally drifted from its Judeo-Christian moorings. But it's not all gone. You can't go to Chick-fil-A on Sunday. Hobby Lobby's not open on Sunday because they don't want any of their employees to have to work on a day of worship. And I think this is just further indicative of some of the confusion that we might have about how we are to keep the Sabbath today as God's people, how we're to be faithful.
Yeah, so again, we see this agitation for Sunday worship, and he was pointing out how certain businesses were closed on Sunday, and so basically I believe what he's saying here is that we need to go back to those days when when everything is closed on Sunday and we have to devote that day to worshiping God, right? So we see this push. Now we're gonna play another video. So in this video, this preacher right here is gonna basically explain according to him why Sunday is special. Now let's watch this video and
If you were to ask most people in the United States, what day is church day, they probably would tell you Sunday. Even if they don't go to church, they probably would tell you Sunday. Now, there's some that would probably say a different day, but by and large, Sunday is church day in our country. And honestly, it's been that way for centuries. When I was growing up, about the only thing that was going on Sundays was the NFL. Other than that, there wasn't much going on. Many organizations didn't, and some still don't plan events on Sundays. Some states had blue laws. I remember growing up, especially in Texas, there were certain things that you could and couldn't buy. And there were some that didn't make any sense. I think you could buy nails, but not a hammer. It's kind of some of those things like that. Even today, there are some places that have banned hunting on Sunday. I just texted a buddy of mine from Maine, and I said, "Are you still one of the places that ban hunting on Sunday?" And he said, "Yeah." So he said there's been some referendums, but it's never passed. So if you get a hunting license in Maine, don't go hunting on Sunday. The thing that I found interesting, of the blue laws that are still around, alcohol probably is the one that, but the other one was selling cars. There are multiple states where you cannot sell cars on Sunday. That just shocked me, and that's still on the books in many places. So really, Sunday, for a lot of us, it has been a special day. Now, if you go back and you looked at the Old Testament, Saturday, or the Sabbath, was a day that was considered holy. The Sabbath, the day of rest, it was on the last day of the week, and it was different or set apart. But in the New Testament era, and especially in America, Sunday is the day. So why is Sunday so special?
Yeah, so we see here that he's making an argument for Sunday, and it's interesting how he goes to the Old Testament and points out how the Sabbath And he says that it was on the last day of the week, but and then he goes on to say that in the New Testament, Sunday is the new Sabbath, and if you do a proper study of the Sabbath in the New Testament, or Sunday in the New Testament, we know that the all the apostles, they still kept the Sabbath even after Christ's, death and ascension. So, but again, we see here that there's this push for Sunday worship, Sunday legislation, and he makes a point where, where he says that the blue laws are still on the books, which is true. The blue laws are still on the books. They have not they haven't gone away. They're still right there in the books, right? And it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time until those laws, especially when it comes to Sunday worship, it's only a matter of time until these laws are enforced. Now we're gonna just play one more video, and then we're gonna move on. Now let's pay attention to this one.
God doesn't love a land that has ripped prayer out of public schools. God doesn't trust a land that has abolished blue laws for green laws.
So he says here that God doesn't love a nation that is taking prayer out of public schools. He doesn't like a nation that has abolished blue laws for green laws. Talk about Sunday blue laws, and then the green laws that he's talking about. He's talking about the Green New Deal, nature and all that stuff. So again, we're seeing this push for Sunday worship, and I could have shown many more examples of this, but these are just a few, and we're going to see more. So now we're going to talk about a few recent developments that took place, just a couple. Now, in Oklahoma, this was back in June when this happened. Now, this article says that Oklahoma schools are now required to teach Bible, Ten Commandments, according to the superintendent. Now, this is what the article says. Now, this is the superintendent right here on your screen. His name is Ryan Walters, the superintendent of Oklahoma. He says, "We've seen the radical leftists drive God out of schools, drive the Bible out of schools, and we have to make sure that our kids have an understanding of what made America great," said Walters. "Not teaching our kids about the faith of our founders and the influence that the Bible had in our history is just academic madness." So bad. He explained that under his directive, instructors in every classroom across the state would have a copy of the Bible to teach from. This is so interesting because we're not even in the mark of the beast crisis, but we see here again, we see this push, for religion to be, because if you think about it, this is in a public school. Some of these teachers, many of these teachers are not believers in God, but yet we see him pushing for religion to be taught in these classes, right? And again, he said right here, he said under his directive, instructors in every classroom. So in other words, whether you're a believer or not, across the state would have a copy of the Bible to teach from, right? And then it goes on to say the teachers, Walter said, will teach the Bible from a historical context, particularly in terms of its role in American history and the influence it had on the country's founders. So we see here that even in the public school now, because now we're seeing this push because the religious right, they want to bring God into the schools, but now they're doing forced to where, you have no other choice. So you have to teach. And I think he said in a different article that um, that they're required to do this, or they have to lose their jobs if they choose not to. So we see this push for religion even in the public school system. So as I was preparing for this presentation, I just learned of a recent development that took place just this Friday, and I had to add this into the presentation because I found this also interesting. Now, this is from CNN. It says Texas School Board approves optional curriculum that incorporates Bible lessons for K-5 classes. So this is optional. This is an optional curriculum, meaning that, you're not required to do this. But in the article, when you read in the article, it was basically pointing out that teachers who teach, and this is a curriculum that is going to be available, that's going to come out just I believe it's going to come out this school year in 2025 for the spring semester. It's going to be available for all teachers, K-5 teachers, but basically if they teach them this curriculum, they'll get basically some extra rewards or something like that. I forgot what it was, but we're seeing, we're seeing more, we're seeing it to where like, to where religion, to where the Bible now, and even the Ten Commandments are being taught. And I remember last year when, I think it was Louisiana, they also tried to push for the Ten Commandments to be taught, but that was voted down. And then Oklahoma, also followed suit and push it forward. And even Texas tried to push the same law, but it got voted down. And I thought to myself when that happened, that maybe God did that to kind of hold back the winds, because only God knew what the outcome was. So, we're seeing this gradual push of religion in the schools. So I believe that as we get closer, we're going to see more and more of this taking place. Now, we're going to be talking about Project 2025. Now, Project 2025 is a 900-page document which was put together by the Heritage Foundation, and which is a mandate of leadership, and it's basically an outline for the conservative president, like Trump, who's the president-elect. It's basically a 100-day playbook. It's basically a playbook for the first 180 days for the president-elect to, basically an outline of what he's going to do, what while he's in office. And it says here that Project 2025 is a historic movement brought together by over 100 respected organizations from across the conservative movement to take down the deep state and return the government to the people. Its mandate for leadership, the Conservative Promise, published in April 2023, is a product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from around the country. The book offers a manual of policy suggestions to meet our country's deepest challenges and put America back on track, including, and here's a few points right here: secure the border, finish building the wall, and deport illegal aliens. And I'm sure we heard a lot about deporting illegal aliens. De-weaponize the federal government by increasing accountability and oversight of the FBI and DOJ, or the Department of Justice. Unleash American energy production to reduce energy prices. Cut the growth of government spending to reduce inflation. Make federal bureaucrats more accountable to democratically elected president and Congress. improve education by moving control and funding of education from DC bureaucrats directly to parents and state and local governments. And lastly, ban biological males from competing in women's sports. But one of the things I want to talk about that's pointed out in this document, in this 900-page document, is about Sabbath rest. Now, I'm sure many of us have seen this, and I'll just go ahead and read through this. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest. Now, the Sabbath that they're talking about over here is not the 7-day Sabbath. They're talking about the first day of the week. And until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by and legal regulation of work on that day. Moreover, a shared day off makes it possible for families and communities to enjoy time off together rather than as atomized individuals, and provides a healthier cadence of life for everyone. Unfortunately, that communal day of rest has eroded under the pressures of consumerism and secularism, especially for low-income workers. And it goes on to say here that Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, to require that workers be paid time and a half hours worked on the Sabbath. That day would default to Sunday, except for employers with sincere religious observance of a Sabbath at different time. Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. The obligation would transfer to that period in houses of worship to the limited extent they may have FLSA covered employees, and employers legally required to operate around the clock, such as hospitals and first responders, would be exempt, as would workers otherwise exempt from overtime. So, here that they're also, I guess I could say, they're also accommodating those who also worship on a different day. They're acknowledging those who also worship on the true Sabbath, the 7th day of the week, from Friday, Sunday, Sabbath. But we know that very soon it's going to get tighter to where those who worship on the Sabbath, they'll no longer receive those accommodations. So now we're going to be talking about Christian nationalism, and I'm sure we all heard of Christian nationalism. Now, Christian nationalism is the belief that the American nation is defined by Christianity, and that the government should take active steps to keep it that way. Right? And how would they keep it that way? Is through this church and state union when they come together, when they work together. So popularly, Christian nationalists assert that America is and must remain a Christian nation, not merely as an observation about American history, but as a prescriptive program for what America must continue to be in the future. And this is from Paul D. Miller, Christianity Today. Now, and so now I'm just gonna cover this one current event because there are those who are in this movement, Christian nationalism movement. They're all for the union of church and state. They're all about the church directing the government, right? To make sure that this nation remains Christian, right? And taking over the government. GOP Rep. Boebert says, "I'm tired of the separation of church and state junk." And she's not the only one. there are many others who have the same mindset about church and state. Church and state come together. Church and state come together. The church directing the government, and this is what the article goes on to say. It says, speaking at a religious service Sunday in Colorado, she told worshipers the church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. This is not how our founding fathers intended it.
So just a quick point, Musa, like I think it's important to emphasize here, like what you're showing is in current events, in the news, in things that are happening right now, and this is an example of what this representative is saying. This is
Yeah,
a direct fulfillment of Revelation chapter 13. What we're
right.
seeing is that the image of the beast is being formed, and as the spirit of prophecy and Ellen White's Great Controversy says, the church will influence the government to pass laws, and we're seeing the government officials now repeating and echoing the exact same thoughts. They're saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, this image of the beast is forming, and when we see these things being talked about, what we're saying here is the image of the beast forming together. And so she says here, I'm tired of the separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in sticking letter and it means nothing like what they say it does. And her comments were first reported by the Denver Post. The Constitution's First Amendment, which states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, has been widely interpreted to mean the separation of church and state, although the phrase is not explicitly used, right? And to me, because for me personally, reading that part of of the First Amendment, to me, it would kind of imply that church and that the church and the state should separate, and I believe it. I believe that the church shouldn't control the state or vice versa. They should be separate one from another. But again, the time's gonna come when the image of the beast will be formed when church and state unite together. And once church and state finally unite, the only result is gonna be persecution for God's people at the end of time. So what we see here is prophecy being fulfilled, Revelation 13 being fulfilled right before our eyes. Now, in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 449, paragraph 3, we're told that church and state are now making preparations for the future conflict. Protestants are working in the sky to bring Sunday to the front, as did the Romanists. Throughout the land, the papacy is piling up her lofty and massive structures, in the secret recesses of which her former persecutions are to be repeated. And the way is preparing for the manifestation on a grand scale of those lying wonders by which, if it were possible, Satan would deceive even the elect. So, the stage is being set for all this to come to pass. Church and state come together, and we're seeing more people, those in laity, preachers, bringing Sunday to the front, calling for Sunday agitations. And we know based on spirit prophecy that it's going to be the people who are going to be calling for Sunday legislations to come to pass. And very soon that time is going to come. That time is soon coming. And everything that we covered, that was covered, dealing with Project 2025, Christian nationalism, it's just a few examples showing us that the stage is being set for this thing to come to pass. And we as God's people, we need to be aware of these things and see prophetically. We need to view these things through the eyes of prophecy, through the lens of prophecy, so that we can see that that what God has told us in His Word through the books of Daniel, Revelation are us, and these are unfolding before our eyes to show us that we're getting closer to His time, and it's time for us as God's people to get ready, because you know He accepts the sign of allegiance to the power which He chooses to obey instead of God. The warning from heaven is, if any man worship the beast and its image and receive its mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture of His indignation. And that's the Revelation 14, verses 9 and 10. And once we receive the mark of the beast, once anyone receives the, I don't want to say you, but once anyone receives the mark of the beast, because the problem with the mark of the beast, Christ, is it's gonna determine our eternal destiny. It's gonna determine our eternal destiny. That's what we're told clearly in inspiration. And once we see the mark of the beast, that's it. That's final. There's no going back. And those who receive the seal of the God, the seal of the living God, no turning back. Once we either for life or death, that's it. That's final. And so this issue is soon going to come for us as God's people who keep the commandments of God, to have the testimony of Jesus Christ, and it's going to become a reality for us. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we going to stand when this test comes upon us? So that's all I have to present, and I hope those watching this video have received a blessing out of it, and yeah, let's just remain vigilant as God's people.